We're so divorced from nature that many of the healing plants we've eaten for millennia are completely forgotten, overlooked, or they're compounded into synthetic drugs and then patented by pharmaceutical companies with side effects. Our guest today is on the mission to change that. He's a globetrotter, researcher, and investigating people, places, and foods around the world for solutions to the challenges impacting our health and planet. He's an author, podcaster, and a co-host of the Emmy Award Winning Netflix docu-series Down to Earth with Zac Efron. This is the story of fatal conveniences with Darin Olien. Darin, welcome.
Hey man, it's great to be here.
Yeah, listen, I'm fascinated with everything about you after reading Super Life and really, following the show itself, Down to Earth. But I want to get to kind of where this all started for you, because you have a background in physiology, nutrition. You studied master's in psychology, but did you ever kind of picture this path for you when you were really young?
No,
not at all.
Not at all. No, not at all. I mean, I think, just coming from a small town in Minnesota, I barely could see beyond my own feet, right? So you're just a normal kid, and upon reflection, you can see certain things that are paving your way for a bigger picture. But at that time, growing up, no. I mean, I wanted to be a veterinarian. I didn't know what I wanted to study in college. It was really the getting hurt playing college football that really kind of woke me up to be like, why don't I just study this this body and this frustration that I have that I can't play anymore. And so that was the blessing. And then, it just kind of kept mushrooming from there,
Yeah. And it often happens that way, that through our own kind of troubles, challenges, everything with our own body, right? Injuries you see, diseases, that you go down a different path. You're thrust down that path. And for you started, you ended up traveling the world. You became this superfood, hunter in a sense. How do you assess even that word superfood? What does it mean to you?
Yeah, I mean, it's on the one hand, you can answer it in many different ways. I think initially when I was, that term was given to me by a journalist in a Business Week article, and it just kind of stuck ever since. But at the time when I was deeply, running around the globe, I was looking for interesting, underutilized botanicals and foods and plants that had special qualities, special constituents, special compounds that were used through indigenous cultures for a long time, and some of which were already known. But what I realized is all of this, the way that they were processed, were kind of neutering the plant or undercutting the efficacy. So that's what got me kind of, traveling to see what was really going on, who was growing it, how they were growing it, and what conditions they were growing it in. And then how was it processed? Because all of that work of nature doing its thing, building upon curcumin in turmeric in India, building the maca meads and maca in 14,000 feet in the Andes. You do all of that work that nature does, and then all of a sudden you're processing it and heating it and killing it. I just wasn't interested in that. I said, well, we need to make sure that what is in these very historical plants, meaning they've had a long history of efficacy and use, let's keep them intact as much as possible and deliver that nutrient density, those constituents that are required kind of in this day and age, right? So because of all the stressors and challenges we have, I really wanted to continue to be a liaison for what nature had done and concentrated those nutrients in particular foods and botanicals. So superfoods became for me just necessary plants that have a high level of nutrient capacity per calorie or per measured unit, right? So you can look at some examples of that people are probably asking. So even really well fermented and grown cacao can be a superfood, right? Mm-hmm. Super high in magnesium, phenylethylamine, neurotransmitter activity, all of these things. Plus, you have this adaptogenic crowd of medicinal mushrooms and adaptogenic herbs, like things that help the body adapt to stressors, like astragalus and ashwagandha and chaga mushrooms and reishi, schizandra, all of these things and a whole lot more. These are botanicals that are geared to help the body deal with these stressors. So I was attracted to plants that had their own mission as it related to us consuming them, right? We have this very, very tight relationship with plants because they've been our medicines way before we put on lab coats and created the American Medical Association. So that was my little way, and innocently coming from, my dad being a professor at the University of Minnesota, working a lot with actual farmers and teaching them business and economics. And my grandfather selling tractors in South Dakota, like I'm surrounded by farmers. So for me, it was kind of this innocent way of going out to the places around the globe to see what was really going on, and then trying to do the business of it by making it better for those people. And then the ultimate benefit was that whole chain. And so that when someone would consume that botanical that we work so hard to preserve, now the person has a chance to benefit from this superfood or this botanical coming from halfway around the world. And so the other quicker way I will answer that too is a superfood can be as easy as, a store-bought conventional potato is a lot different than you going out and planting your own sweet potatoes in cultivated, rich soil. Right. So comparing the two may look the same, but can be radically different in terms of the micronutrients and even antioxidants and mineral complexities that could have. So one could argue that this one is a little more super than this one. Right. So there's no real definition of a superfood. It's just really, I think the focus is on making food better,
right?
Than where we've gotten to. Where we've gotten to is a little off center.
Yeah. Sure. No, I feel like unadulterated nature provides superfoods all around, right? And it depends on you as a person as well. What is to you that superfood? Because we're all quite different and have different ability to digest things and everything, which sort of leads me to that a second, like a follow-up answer on this search. You've been around the world, but there is a push now to eat a little bit more locally, not be shipping things all around and kind of harming. But is that something you feel is realistic in America, where we kind of have everything, again, very conveniently given to us all times of the year? You can get things that aren't seasonally here. Do you feel we could move in a direction where we could still eat locally, have superfoods, perhaps, I don't know, not get it from all around the world? What are your thoughts on that? Because even something like barukas, which you do, come from a certain part, have to be shipped places. Yeah. So, locally versus the worldwide kind of, providing of these things. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think at the end of the day, there's not this thing that's going to save us. It's a complex issue, and by how we're sleeping, and the food we're drinking, the food we're eating, and the water we're drinking, and the meals we make every day, those are the cornerstone, and the movement we give our body. Those are the cornerstones of our health, and then the adjunct is the using food as medicine approach, filling in the gaps that we're clearly having in our modern day world. And then the other thing to really add is absolutely we can do it from a local perspective. So expanding that aperture a little bit, you realize, I think the stat is about 42 to 47 million acres of lawn that we currently water. For what? Right? Bordering our homes, serving no function other than a great place for our pets to poop, right? And occasionally throw a football once a year, like with your kid. So even if you took half of that and everyone started watering food and then made this beautiful, botanically rich opportunity of food production rather than watering lawn, we could grow so much food it would blow your mind, right? We could become, your neighbors has way too many tomatoes, so you take some. You have way too many sweet potatoes, you give some. Like, that's the thing about nature. When you follow nature, one seed produces 700 seeds in a pomegranate, of one pomegranate within many of the one seed that you planted. So nature is the perfect model of abundance. And so if we follow nature, we quickly will realize and start to, create that sovereignty back again. And so, less and less and less dependent on anything outside of ourselves, like water, power, food, shelter. We should constantly be thinking about decentralizing all of that stuff and think about, ways that anyone listening to that, wouldn't it be great to have most of the food you needed out your front door? Wouldn't it be amazing to have clean energy generation? And I'm not just saying solar and wind, there's a lot of other technology. Wouldn't it be great so that when the power went down, if it were to go down, that you actually have the power for your own home? Wouldn't it be great to have clean water that's not dependent on, so it's these things again. And then you go outside and everyone can grow herbs. Everyone can grow medicinal herbs to even if you don't have land, you can, make some pots and grow. Hell, you can grow tomatoes, you can grow carrots, you can grow cilantro, you can grow basil, you can grow plants. And then there's just a lot of power in that.
Yeah. And it's an interesting discussion because right now it feels like we're in a scarcity mindset where food shortages we're talking about and things aren't available, when if you really take a step back, we're all in an abundance of land, an abundance of things that we don't even realize. And if we stepped up and started gardening a little bit more, we could start to address that.
It's a failed system. It's not true that the shortages are short. Yeah. It's that the system that we've quote unquote become dependent on is not that great, right? So we have to rethink this stuff. We have to put more seeds in the ground. We have to use this sovereign kind of soul that we have and just start using our common sense. Listen, in the modern day world, we've created such an incredible ability to have all of these conveniences, right? But to the point where it's divorcing us from our own nature. And that's where it gets really really kind of tricky, right? When we've all of a sudden flipped the script on most of the time in our lives, about 93% of our lives were led mostly outside.
Right.
And now it's completely opposite.
Completely.
So we're not touching the ground. We're not in touch with the light of a start of a day or the light at the end of the day, or circadian rhythms. No one's sleeping. If you're not sleeping, you're losing the greatest superfood you can possibly imagine. And the restoration and upregulation that sleeping only does. And there's no food, no plant, no thing that you can do to counteract the lopsided dysfunction and dysregulation of the body's rhythms. So it's very, very, very basic and common sense, but we've made it so complicated, and again, we've given so much of our power away to these systems. We just need to kind of, okay, great. And there, again, I'm all for turning on the heat when it's cold and turning on the air conditioning when it's hot. Like, these things are amazing. Turning on the faucet and I have on-demand water. Like, it's incredible, right? And we have to wake up from the apathy that we're in a little bit. Like, we do not have food shortages. We just have we have many, many, many failing systems.
And those failing systems, especially when I look at something like medicine, which I've been in or around my whole life, are leading us to disease, unhappiness, unhealthy situations. I mean, I even saw this today. A study came out that gardening, which we're talking about, reduce cancer risk, chronic disease, and improve mental health, which makes total sense to me. Because again, when you're gardening, you're outside, you got your hands in Mother Earth, you're getting microbiomes in there that are good for you. Everything leads into this cascade, and you got great food supply.
Yeah.
But it does lead me into this idea of what you talk about, and it's a new book I know you're working on, Fatal Conveniences. Convenience is what it is. We've traded health, empowerment, all these words, right, for convenience. And we've done it somewhat willingly. I don't think there are people out there anymore that say, oh, I didn't know that was bad for me.
Right.
Why do you think that is? Do you think that we're just in a state where health doesn't really matter to us anymore? Like, I think about this. I tell people all the time, you talk about sunscreen, and I say, don't use spray oxybenzone. That is a known carcinogen, endocrine disruptor. It's terrible for you in every way, shape, or form. You could look this up. You cannot deny it. I mean, these are published reports on it, and they still use it. I mean, what is that, Darin? Like, where are we going wrong with that? How do we get in touch with those people? Because it seems it's like health just doesn't matter. Or are they going to say, well, there's a pill for that somewhere, so I'd rather deal with the convenience, deal with the pill, send it down the road, and deal with cancer when I'm 70?
It's an amazing question, and I don't have an answer for it.
Right.
I know that that in the one hand, they don't want to believe you that is true. Which is why, I now finished the book after a year and a half, and being inspired by my father in the 90s he had chemical sensitivity. That there is an apathy. I'm using this word again. There's an apathy to, if I go to a store or a grocery store, that anything there can't possibly harm me, right? Why would they sell that? There's regulatory systems in place. There's the FDA, there's the USDA, there's the FCC, there's the EPA. All of these and so many quote unquote regulatory bodies, they got our back. They're protecting us. Our government's protecting us. We, in some way, we want to believe that. We really do. I really want to believe that, but I'm staring at the research. I'm staring, just like you said, the oxybenzoines and all of these things. I mean, you're staring at this stuff going, oh my God, this is a known carcinogen, and yet it's still allowed in products, still allowed in children's products, still allowed in all of these things. So your compromised immune system, your neutering of your own body and your children and everything else, all of these things, it's an invisible, slow killer that, believe me, it's everywhere. Personal care and beauty products and clothing and electromagnetic fields. I mean, the research around EMFs is exactly as if it was a chemical. Like, these things are just, so, I mean, the best thing I can do is try to educate in a common sense kind of way. When you lay it out there, you're going, okay, if you take this dental floss that conveniently slips between your teeth, well, that convenient slip is a cousin of Teflon called PFAS, and it is good at its job. You know, you don't slam your gums or cut your gums because it's that convenient little slip, but it's a known carcinogenic to your kidneys, published, right?
Yep.
So we reach for that product. It's a product that works, but we somehow, and listen, this should be shouted from every mainstream media. Like, hey, you have a choice to buy this product. For some reason, it's still on the market, but it's going to help sprint you towards cancer. Probably not a good idea, right? Yep. So, you know, we have 60 to 80,000 toxins and chemicals put in our environment every year. 200 chemicals, most of which are carcinogenic, in the umbilical cord of every child born today. And numbers are only increasing. So the best, to answer your question, the best thing I can do is that I perceive I can do at this moment is kind of lay it out. Here's what's going on. Here's where they failed. And this is what you can do about it. Stay away from this and do this instead. Right. So it's not that I'm trying to take conveniences away. I'm just really trying to steer people towards healthier products that are tested, and you can still use dental floss. You can still brush your teeth. You can still shampoo your hair. It's just, don't use these known harmful chemicals in the process. Unfortunately, the big boys and these big companies, still have this these games going on with this stuff. And that's part of what I'm just trying again to kind of shake people just a little bit, to kind of wake out of the zombie mode of thinking that everything's fine when it really isn't. So I think the invisible world of these chemicals are one of the biggest dangers that we face, because it's a slow destruction of our bodies and of society.
And I feel also, because it is that slow destruction, it's the boiling of the frog slowly until you don't, realize that you're there in a completely diseased state, that you can't truly attribute one-to-one, right? You can't attribute what you're eating right now with GMO sprayed with pesticides and say, tomorrow I got cancer. Oh, I know that. I had this, I had cancer. It's over years. And you have this powerful, lobbyists and these incredibly large companies now that are across the globe forcing hands of even the government. And like you said, if you look back on the track record of FDA between Vioxx and Oxycontin, so many things they got wrong. Yeah. Others they don't even talk about and have been slid under. You'd be able to say, hey, this isn't a winning formula. If you go to a financial analyst and they're losing you money year after year, you should probably, stop trusting their word. But we still do. And it's unfortunate. And we're seeing the outcause in 60% chronic illness, like you said, cancer rampant, obesity in children now. I mean, how do you feel about that? I don't know if you saw that from the AAP that recently said as young as 12, we should start giving them drugs for obesity and do surgery on them. I mean, to me, it was just like, come on, guys, we can't do lifestyle. We can't talk about sugar intake, this and everything. Like even that, the AP for pediatricians, right? American Academy, to do that to me is just like, can we please stop this? You know, this is insanity now. Let's call them out on this.
Right. Yeah. And it doesn't make any sense to me either, because, you know, treating the problem with the same problem, meaning chemicalize, burn, scrape, you know, cut your way to the solution of this problem is insane. You know, how about eliminating ultra processed foods? How about eliminating and changing these chemicals? How about, like, you know, if you want to create subsidies in the world, I you know, figure out where people are live, get their zip code, and give them a bunch of seeds. Don't give them money. Let them plant food, and they have food, right? And let people kind of get back to what they know to do. So yeah, the you know, the biggest kind of, I realized the God that is worshipped here more than ever is the prophet. And it's unfortunate because the prophet and the power of that has compromised everything. And so the only thing that it hasn't compromised is the 8 billion people that are here. Right. So that's what we need to talk to. We need to talk. I want to talk to the moms. You know, I want to don't put those disposable diapers on your child. It's a petroleum, and it's neutering your beautiful little baby. Meaning that it's getting those endocrine disruptors and those plasticizers and those phthalates and all those things getting into your child. So don't use those. Use these. So get the mom, get the lioness.
Yeah.
Get her fired up. Get her educated. And also get the kids educated. Yeah. Do you know what's, you know, that yellow number 4 of that beverage? You know what it's doing to you? Like, let's wake up, and we've got numbers on our side, man. And then that voting power of our dollars. Then you see waves of change. Yeah. So I would rather have, you know, we were lucky. We had, you know, I think up to the first season of Down to Earth, we had 75 million people that saw it in the first year. And, you know, great, let's go, because that's a lot more than a half of 1% of people that are trying to make decisions for all of us. Right. Absolutely. So let's educate and know that, unfortunately, not all products and services are your best, have your best interest. So, and again, I'm not here to, it's very simple for me. If something, I don't even care to call people out or call the agencies out. All I see is them failing at their job for whatever reason. I don't know why. I can make assertions, but they're failing at it. So all I want for people is to know that certain things are riddled with cancer-causing, endocrine disrupting, challenging manipulations of body chemistry and obesogens. I mean, listen, the chemicals that are causing some of this obesity is also at large, right? So there's the body holding on to a huge amount of these chemicals, because the great thing that the body does is it can hold chemicals that are harmful to the body in fat tissue. That's right. So there's a lot of amazing protections that the body does in this weird world that we've created. But it literally, it's like, it's us just waking up to us, and I'm excited about it. I don't like that some of the things are what they are, but I'm excited about, like, hey man, like, now that I found this out, let's just do this over here. Let's use this. Let's empower ourselves, and like a good thing, people want to pass on good things.
Absolutely. I always say I'm not anti-pharmaceutical, anti-chemical, or anti-food in a sense. I'm pro-health. That's what I am at my core. If we could get you healthy, that is like my mission. That's what I'm happiest about. You could still have all that out there. Big tobacco is still out there. It doesn't have the power it has anymore, for sure. And people have turned more pro-health, which is great. And it starts with empowerment. And, we can't deny the 60 to 80,000 or more chemicals out there. They're out there. They're probably never, going back into the box of sorts. But I know you talk about, and this is a big part of what we try to do at our medical clinic, and everything we do is detoxification. It was one of your 5, big pieces there in Super Life, your first book. So talk about how you detoxify in such a toxic world. And like you said, even things like EMFs and 5G, these totally unseen toxins no one seems to talk about, but of course impact us. Yeah. What are you doing to really detoxify and limit toxicity?
Yeah, I mean, that's the first thing. You limit your exposure, right? So the foods you're eating, that's clearly the filtration of water, because there's just a really huge amount of chemicals from our world that are now in our tap water. Mm-hmm. And so, creating your world, and then again, your home, there's fire retardants showing up in TV sets, couches and pillows and mattresses, in baby clothing. It's just so astonishing. Mm-hmm. So you have to, unfortunately, you got to do some work because again, the first layer is realizing that no one has your best interest other than you. So as much as we want to trust even our doctors, you still have to use discernment of your own common sense and ask questions and everything else. I have nothing against our medical system. It's freaking amazing, but we've misidentified it as a health service. Mm. It's not for long-term health. It's for I cut my leg last year with a chainsaw. I'm going right to the doctor, right? I'm not, it's like
you're not putting herbs on that and just sitting around, right?
I need 20 stitches. Let's do this, right?
Right.
So, so I forget where where the question was, but yeah. So anyway,
no. I mean, listen. I think the point is that we have all these toxins in the world. We want to limit them any way possible, right? And then we want to try and get them out. Is there anything you're doing? I mean, listen. We came together. Basically, I knew through Dr. Robbie Besner at his Therasage. I use the infrared sauna a lot. Yeah. Sweat out toxins, right? Get it out of the tissue. What are the other ways? Of course, I think like water, but what are the ways you're detoxing, not just limiting toxin exposure?
Yeah. So there's a lot of great things. I got great practitioners that I reach out. I do, doing blood panels, doing testing, doing your T counts, getting what the diagnostic things that anyone can do. You want to see what's going on in your body and get it from multiple directions. And so therefore you have clear evidence going, okay, well, you're getting some exposure here and you're getting some exposure there. So like, for example, one of the cornerstones that I just recently went back to is I just did a colon cleanse. I just finished one. Like that one, if your colon is processing and moving and clearing itself out, think about it. Like that in your urea, your bladder. Those are the ways your body's releasing, plus your skin, like you said. So getting out, I sweat every day. I've been cold plunging and cold showering for 15 years. I like also the way back in the day, Dr. Schultz. We would do hot and cold, so you'd get this kind of pumping effect of the body in the shower.
Lymphatic drainage, right? Yeah.
Yes, and it's like unbelievable. Yeah. It's different than just sitting in a sauna or going in a cold plunge. These kinds of things plus obviously on a daily basis, just clearing the mind, not flipping on the phones and the TVs straight away, and do that first work of silence and meditation and journaling, and more than ever, man, like more than ever, because there's so much input.
Too much.
And people are telling us what to do and think and be and all of that stuff. We need to be informed from the inside out. So I'm a big fan. I intermittent fast. It was funny how that's the term now, but I was fasting for 20 years. I used to just do all fruit before noon and all of that stuff. I used to fast every Friday for 36 hours, and now kind of back to that, except I just did this colon cleanse. So, it's like proactive stuff that builds on each other, is a really good plan.
And that's the beauty of it. Most of this stuff is free. I mean, we are given the most amazing excretory organs to deal with this. Of course, they're overwhelmed if you don't allow them to. But once you just do that, a fast, right, that resets things. You're not putting things in so you can get them out. You could go outside and sweat, right? You could run in nature, and that's a sweating, and just being in the UV rays. That's even, and then your mind, people forget about that because they think about body only. But that mental aspect of it, the meditation, the getting things out on paper, almost detoxing negative thoughts and staying away from the fear porn of news and what everyone sells you these days. Yeah. So it's really, really important. Now, you finished up and it aired the second season of Down to Earth. It was another great season. You were in Australia most of the time. And what was the highlight or something you learned there that you hadn't known before that kind of hit you a little bit deeper?
I mean, the obvious one for me is just the learning from the Aboriginal First Nations people, and certainly Torres Strait, the history of the Torres Strait Islanders, which is very close to Papua New Guinea.
Yes.
In the Northeast. I knew nothing of that kind of, and really what we found out is many Australians don't know of that area, and the way they're living and how they're living and the challenges that they're having, but also just the openness, just the first vibe from every Indigenous person was just it was just there. You can feel the inclusiveness innately within their hearts and within their actions. And it's almost to the point where it's overwhelming in a sense because of their inclusiveness, and just demonstrated under severe odds of getting, their entire country taken over, and the plight of that whole scenario. And yet you show up, and the warmth and the giving and the care and the openness, that set such an amazing tone for the series, because those are the original people, right? They're the original people. And who are we to say anything about that land without including them and without them including us?
Right.
And then, the whole series just peppered with, I'm always just blown away by the inspired people doing amazing things, right? So, the simple things of, a few grams of asparagopsis from the sea eliminates methane in a cow by over 90%. And even though I don't like animal agriculture at that scale, it's something that you could fix immediately. And it's just it also screams at me that the misdirection of our agencies again, and the government's priorities, when you have committed people around this planet that are making extraordinary, amazing progress, that it's very clear that the government leads nothing. That we as people lead everything.
Right.
So that's where it touches me. And of course, swimming with wild dolphins and swimming in the Great Barrier Reef and seeing the intricacy of a very, radically different ecosystem that might as well be on the moon. Right. So, it's touched by the people and touched by.
I mean, for me, it definitely brings me this understanding that, our ancestors and ancient wisdom is nothing to be scoffed at or think of as or belittled because they didn't have the technology we have now. And we find ourselves all, important because of that, and laugh maybe at people that look to the stars back. Like, I find that incredible arrogance in a sense. And that's probably why we're out of touch with nature and sicker than we've ever been. 100%. And secondly, what I pull out of that is the amazing ability for nature to provide solutions we never even knew we'd have problems to, right? It's almost like when you look at something like 5G and EMF, which is very new, and then you look at something like shungite and other types of, materials that basically counteract that. And it's like, it was almost a foresight of Mother Nature to provide us with this.
Yeah.
And for that, you have to, be at awe with nature and start to see, well, nature has the solutions. Einstein was right. He wasn't a dumb guy when he's like, you look to nature, right? Yeah. And I think that's what we have to do overall in medicine and health, just for humanity, is look to nature. Yeah. And so for that, I really did appreciate that series altogether, because I think it got people to be like, damn, there's a lot out there, first off, that I didn't know about. And wow, nature and our ancestor and people we don't know about are pretty incredible, right?
Yeah, the best. And you realize that the opposite of that, divorced from nature and trying to artificialize an existence and thinking that it's advancement, clearly has a long, continuous side effect of immense proportion, that we're playing with things that, like you said, the arrogance that we think we are above nature, or nature is somewhere out there, is just the massive flaw of a human.
And again, it's one of the simplest things I say is to reconnect with nature. I mean, you should have never been. You are part of nature. We don't disconnect, actually, but we do in a sense. And I always say, if you want to find yourself, get healthier or anything, just go out into nature. Go out to your forest, your park, anywhere. Doesn't need to be that you get a plane, have to travel to the middle of Tibet and, be alone and become a Buddhist. But you could do so much just by walking outside and literally hugging a tree, right? And feeling it and touching a leaf and staring at it for a second and seeing the veins that resemble our veins in our own body. Like, so much could come out of that. And yet some people scoff at that and say, where's the drug, right? Where's the clinical proof of it? Now, I know we only have a limited time here, so I wanted to get to the new book. You said you finished it, Fatal Conveniences. Tell us, what are some of the things we're going to learn in there? What will the reader kind of pull out of that?
Yeah, so it's similar to some of the things we've been talking about, other than I'm taking some massive swings at, setting up the course of the history of some of these things, how we got there, what's the biggest problems of electromagnetic fields, personal care products, clothing. You don't realize the destructive nature of clothing. That actually shook me to my core. I didn't realize how crazy that is. And food systems. I really dug into food systems and what kind of food comes out of that. Obviously, ultra processed food, but also just the chemicalized forms of animal agriculture. But the great thing is, it's again, we're running around with these ideas that, hey, it's all good. I'm fine. I dive into this, this device we all have, the cell phone. And you'll walk away going, probably, I'm never going to put that cell phone up to my head.
Or in your pocket, right, by your reproductive system.
Yeah, and it's clear. The evidence is clear, and the fine print of the manufacturers say that this is not safe within 9 inches of the body. And is anyone ever doing that? No. So we expose things, but we take people on a journey of like, hey man, this is how we got here. Here's the really bad problems of this convenience that's not so great, and here's what you do about it. So the last portion of the book is really, here's all of the amazing options that you have that are not going to harm you. Right. So, we have to talk about the fatal conveniences of it in order for people to get to the other side. So, and that's the fun. It's like anything in life, you have to deal with your problems, because your problems don't go away by not dealing with them. You got to expose these things first, and then celebrate. And again, you take one step at a time. You clear your space. And then what's going to happen over time is you're going to feel better and better and better and better and better. And then you're detoxed, right? And you just do the next right thing. I think that this book, when it comes out, it's on pre-order right now, but when it comes out, people will realize they can just go back to it over and over and over again. And it's just the start. Fatal conveniences are everywhere, right? There's so many different aspects of fatal conveniences. Like I said, the dental floss to the toothpaste, the fluorides, to tap water, to shoes, even normal shoes are just horrible for your feet. Colognes and perfumes, and like we just cover
so much.
We just cover so much in the book, and I'm excited about it. I just did a talk the other day, and I blasted out a few things, and people, this whole dental, like these dental students came up to me, and they were like so astonished that. But that's the thing.
And that also is an interesting one, because dentists, and I've spoken to many, look at their kind of fatal conveniences of mercury, fluoride, some other things that they should be turning around. I did see that the ADA is starting to pull back and said they were going to phase out all mercury fillings, but it should have been a long time ago by now. It's like, come on, that's one of the worst things you could do, is put one of the most potent neurotoxins known to man inside your mouth. Crazy. But the point is, you got to point out these problems, and people realize, oh yeah, it does make sense. Why would I put that in my mouth? And then you provide the solutions, like ceramic things and others.
Exactly. And that's the thing. Like, listen, I'm excited because it's like problem, solution. The rest of my life, whether it's water, power, food, shelter, toxic products, or whatever, it's problem, solution. And sometimes the solution, we need to push harder on it. We need to get these things solved. We need to expose this so we can then develop together these solutions. And they're here. And we're ready, and it's time. Again, we can't wait for other people to do those things.
No. Darin, where can people learn more about you, about getting the book, Barukas, everything? You got a lot going on, I know, but where can they learn more?
Yeah, so darinolien.com. We've got barukas.com, BARUKAS, best nuts on the planet. And Darin Olien social. You can pre-order the book, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Fatal Conveniences. And that's a few things. Working on some stuff.
It sounds amazing. Darin, thank you so much, first off, for your work, for everything you're doing to showcase this and show people a different way, leading them to health. And I truly believe that the healthier you are, the healthier this planet is. So thank you for that.
Yeah, man. My pleasure. Keep up your good work as well.
Will do. Like we discuss so often on this show, so many of the answers to our challenges, whether it be health or ecological, really lie in our ability to reconnect with nature. Until next time, keep writing your own healing story.